What's up, everybody out there in the YouTube trucking community? Sean Cahalan, Christian Brother Trucker, coming at you again with another video, sharing some random thoughts today and maybe a little bit of a rant. I made this video earlier. It was about 35 minutes long, but I was driving down the road and I had a lot of background noise and everything else, so I decided to delete that one and do it over again. Today, I'm thinking a lot about communication and the way that these mega fleets, medium-sized fleets that are 500 to 1,000 to 1,200 trucks operate. And I got to tell you, even the best driver out there, the best of us, we just get run through the ringer when it comes to, driving for these bigger fleets. And communication, in this industry is one of the most important things. It's always been the most important thing in this industry. It's communication, planning, and pre-planning, and everything else. And I have found that the bigger the fleet, the less effective they are at communications. And why is that? Well, it's because they want to automate and they want to distort the ratio of drivers to load planners and drivers to fleet managers. So our fleet managers, I'm gonna roll my windows up so that it's not as loud here. I guess I'm next to the airport. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've been playing around in Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, and all of that for the last couple of days. And it's been really rough, and again, this communication thing keeps coming up, and these last 3 weeks that I've been driving for this company, it's just been horrible, absolutely horrible. So our communication as a driver, as a company driver, and I'm going to talk about the differences between company drivers, lease operators, and owner operators, but the same thing across all lanes of driving and operating trucks and running businesses out here. 100% the most important thing is relationships and communication. There are big, huge misunderstandings and just basic misconceptions out here that we don't have to communicate. And that is it's a problem that's on both sides of the fence. So within these big mega fleets, these bigger fleet companies and brokerages and, load planners and whatever the case may be, they are responsible for, from anywhere from 40, 50, 60, up to 100, 200 trucks. And the amount of communication that you're able to maintain when your ratio is that high, it's almost non-existent. It's very difficult to communicate what you need to communicate and to make sure that you have all the information that you need to have to be able to do your planning. As a driver, the most important thing is planning. We have to plan out our loads. We have to pre-plan. We have to plan everything out, and we have schedules that we have to keep, and there is a level of communication that has to be there. It's not an option for it not to be there, because if it's not there, then we're late and we're not able to communicate with our customers. And let's just say that the less communication that there is, the more opportunities there are for high levels of stress and people running behind and not being able to work with our customers to, maybe move an appointment or to just let them know that we're running a little bit behind. A lot of these problems start out the moment you receive a pre-plan. Like the moment I receive a pre-plan on my Qualcomm and I look at something and I say this is going to be late, or I don't have quite enough time on this, I'm not comfortable, I immediately tell my fleet manager that there's going to be problems with this load before I even get going. If you don't, and it's a big surprise to them, they're not going to appreciate it. And, quite frankly, you're not doing your job. You're not doing your part of communicating problems up front. And that has to be done whether or not they're responding to you or not. You have to communicate on your end and keep them up to speed as to what's going on, either by phone call or by Qualcomm messaging or texting. However, whatever your media is that you are required, email, whatever, to communicate everything, updates and stuff as you progress along in your trip. As a company driver, we automatically send in our macros. So a lot of our communication it's ingrained in us. We send in our empty calls, our unloaded calls. We send in our arrive at calls, arrive at shipper, loaded complete, ETA updates, PTA updates, and all of that. That's all done through the macros. So, the basic fundamental of the communication is there. It doesn't matter if you're a company driver, and don't think that just because you go on to be a lease operator or an owner operator that you aren't supposed to do those very basic fundamental things. You do them as a company driver, you will do them as a lease operator, and you will do them as an owner operator. Just because you become an owner operator does not mean that you do not need to effectively communicate with people. If you do not effectively communicate with people, you are going to piss people off, and you are going to burn bridges, and nobody's going to want to work with you. So, communication is a have to. Now, building off that foundation, what is it that makes it so difficult as a company driver? What is it that I'm complaining about? Well, I'm complaining about the fact that there's a disconnect. The fleet manager, his main responsibility and role is to look after me and make sure that I'm getting good loads that will line me out for the week so that it maximizes my efficiency. And he needs to, take a quick look at the pickup time, the delivery time. And if the load doesn't look right, don't give it to me, because I'm going to call you on the phone and tell you take it off of me, because I don't want that load. It doesn't happen very often. I don't very often flat out turn down a load. This company is not, forced dispatch per se, but you really don't want to turn down loads, because when you turn down loads, you upset people. However, if you do have a valid reason, this company is willing to work with you. Some companies are not. I was at a company before where it was forced dispatch. It didn't matter what you thought. It didn't matter what you said. It didn't matter whether you knew that that was a ridiculous load and that it was going to mess up your whole week. They didn't care. So there's a balance, but there's also an imbalance, and there's also just a general overall consensus of nobody gives a shit. This is a relationship business. Anybody that tells you that it's not doesn't know what they're talking about. Every relationship matters, and the better you are at building relationships and being an effective communicator builds value for you. And it doesn't matter if you're a company driver, it doesn't matter if you're a lease operator, and it doesn't matter if you are an owner operator. Your communication and your ability to be able to communicate with people in an effective, tactful way is your most important thing in this business. Now, I just got off the phone with my fleet manager and I lit him up. I did it very, very peacefully. I was very excited. I was very upset. But he also knows that my loads over the last few days have been crap. And these load planners keep giving me bad loads. Now, I know I've been in this area many, many times. I know they have better loads that they can give me, and yet they keep giving me these loads that are absolutely ridiculous. The load that they just sent me, I just delivered this load in Atlanta, Georgia this morning, and it was a 372 mile load. Yesterday, I just delivered a 204 mile load before I picked this one up. Okay. Before that, I had a 783 mile load. Before that, I had a 501 mile load. Before that was 460 mile load. And before that was 619. And before that was 721. And before that was 446. Used to be, my loads used to look like this: 1210, 387, 543, and 1078 or 1138. So they used to give me a little bit of both, and I really appreciated that, because then I wasn't swapping every single day. And I usually don't complain much if I'm getting 500 to 700 mile loads. That's not as bad. But when they start giving me 250 mile loads and 370 mile loads back to back, I get pissed. really fast. I am not a local driver. I am not a regional driver. I am an over-the-road driver. So what does that mean? Well, that means that I should be seeing loads anywhere from 650 to 1,400 miles. Period. I mean, that's what I should see. I am an over-the-road driver. I'm not regional and I'm not local. So why are you giving me these short little piddly-ass runs at 200 to 350 miles? So anyway, so I communicated that with him, and I asked him, I said, you need to find me something else. I said, this is going to have me running from here over to South Carolina and back over to McDonough, Georgia, which is on the other side of Atlanta. I'm going to be in Atlanta all day. It's going to take me all day to do a 350-mile run. I don't want to do that, period. And I'm not going to do that. So I very tactfully told him, you know, find me something else, because if I run this load and you give me another load that's like this, I'm about likely to just shove this truck up your butt. Probably not, but, you know, I'm expressing and communicating my frustrations. I'm not shooting him or putting him on the firing range. I'm just letting him know, please let these planners know that this isn't cool. It's just not. And if he's not willing to work it out, or if he's not able to work it out, then I will get on the phone with my terminal manager or operations manager over that whole fleet and region. So hopefully this gets sorted out. I'm sure that it will. But in communication and some of the problems that are in this industry, they've been the same since 2006 when I first came to trucking, and I'm sure it's been the same even before that. And I'm sure that some of you veteran drivers that have been out here a lot longer than I have, you can attest to this, that all mega fleets have always had this problem. It's because the ratio of trucks to fleet managers is 40 to 1. And on the weekends, it's like 200 to 1. I can't, for the life of me, figure out why that's an acceptable thing. It's not, in my opinion. The load planners that plan out these loads, they're the customer service representative. They're the ones that plan these loads. They have about 150 to 200 trucks on their load board, and all they do is match trucks to loads, match trucks to loads. They're not looking at, they may look at the aggregate of the hours that you have, and they may see that, yes, it looks like at first glance that you have enough time, but they don't know how many hours you ran yesterday. They don't know how many hours you ran that week. They're not looking at the particulars of it. They're just saying it looks like he has the hours. Let's give him this load. And if you're low on hours, they're going to give you crap loads, because what they're going to do is they're going to want to string you along. And they don't realize that a lot of times that gets very, yeah, it's not fun. Okay. A lot of times when I run into these problems, I try to, you know, get in the middle of it and stop it as fast as I can. And it usually works out. But the fleet manager basically does not dispatch you in a lot of these fleets. In the smaller companies, they do. A lot of times in the smaller ma and pa 10 to 100 trucks, your fleet manager or your driver manager will also be your dispatcher. They will be the ones calling up the customers. They will be the ones that are lining up the loads for you. It'll be one person. In these mega fleets, there's multiple people. And your fleet manager will have a string of emails. And so if you have a problem, you communicate it to your fleet manager, and your fleet manager will then have to communicate it to multiple different people in the company, and they will have to get back to him before he gets back to you. It is a mess, and it is no fun. And it's a part of the business that I absolutely despise. I think it's stupid. And, you know, they keep trying to make things faster, and they keep trying to automate things. And I have found out that they're coming out with this technology where a computer basically matches your loads to your truck. So I'm not sure how much of it's automated and how much of it is done by humans anymore. I don't know if some of these customers that we haul for just get on a website and post loads and then put it into an automated system that just matches it to the truck depending on who puts in their empty call first, and it automatically sends it to the truck. I don't know. All I know is it sucks. Really bad. because I need human eyes on these things. And if I'm going to run efficiently, I need to be able to not have to follow an algorithm on a computer that's going to say, well, it looks like he has time. Well, you don't know what I know. And you don't know how I like to run. And my fleet manager does. But if he doesn't have any control, then basically it puts the load planner, kind of pits them against me, and my poor fleet manager's in the middle. And so I feel bad for my fleet manager. I really do, because he's a really nice guy. And I communicate really well with him, and he communicates really well with me. And I really don't want to seem unreasonable, but I'm out here to maximize my miles. I don't like to sit. I don't like to do these short runs because they ruin my days. And it makes it 5 times as hard or 10 times as hard to do my job. And I'll tell you what, when we start running into problems, when it rains, it pours. And I found out that they've changed to a bunch of new load planners that they're having a high turnover there, and they're having a high turnover in fleet managers. And so my fleet manager now, instead of having 50 trucks, has about 60 on his board. So it gets worse and worse and worse. And these companies, you know, what are they going to do? If they're short on HR and they're short on people, they still have the same amount of trucks. But you know what's going to happen is that shit rolls downhill. And when the drivers get pissed off and they start leaving, that's ultimately the effect. It is my job to communicate. And when I don't get that communication back with my fleet manager, I get on the phone. You know, if you're a fleet manager, or you're thinking about becoming a fleet manager, and you're not good at communication, and you can't communicate across different media, like, you know, email, Qualcomm, and on the phone, you should not become a fleet manager. If you cannot effectively verbally communicate on the phone, don't even apply to become a fleet manager. And if you don't know crap about trucking, you probably shouldn't be a fleet manager. You should at least know the basic fundamentals of driving a truck, or know something about trucking in general, before you come over here and try to do this business. You know, I think that it should be a prerequisite for anybody that decides to work in an office to have anything to do with load planning or fleet manager or operations, that they should have a year's worth of driving as a company driver under their belt before they even take that on, so that they know what it's like for us. Because if you don't, we're going to butt heads. Period. End of story. When I was working for Melton Flatbed, I used to get into these arguments with one of my fleet managers. And I was new, and there was this lady that was over the new hires and the trainees. And I was over in California, and they put me on a load going from Southern California up to outside of Seattle, Tacoma, Washington. And I looked at the load, and they told me, well, you need to dispatch yourself at 50 miles an hour on your load planning. And I told her, I said, I'm 80,000 pounds. You've got me on the I-5. I said, I'm coming out of California going into Oregon. I'm going up and down these mountains. And yeah, no, I'm not dispatching myself at 50 miles an hour. I said, I'm going to dispatch myself at 50 miles an hour, and I'm going to add in my load and unload time and my pre-trip time and my fueling time. And why am I doing that? Because I know that area. I know that the speed limit in California is 55. I'm going to be in heavy traffic, so I'm not going to be able to go 55. How fast am I going to actually be able to go? About 45, maybe 40, right? So she's like, well, you know, when you get into Oregon, it's 65. And I said, when was the last time you drove truck? Have you ever driven truck? No, because if you knew anything at all, Oregon, across the whole state of Oregon on the I-5, going up and down that I-5 corridor, the speed limit for trucks is 60, not 65, honey. So think again, okay? Plus, I'm fully loaded with a flatbed, going up and down these mountains. You really think that I'm going to be able to go 60 miles an hour? No. Again, how fast am I going to be able to go up and down these hills? 50? 45? You know, I said, so I'm going to dispatch myself at 50 and I'm going to pad out my time. Well, we don't do that here. I said, I don't care what you do here. I said, just know, I will put in my ETA the way you're telling me to put in my ETA. Just know that I'm going to send a message in that says what my actual ETA is. And I did. I sent in a message. I let her know. I said, I'm going to be late. Period. I don't have enough time on this load. So basically, you know, after I talked to her, I talked to my other fleet manager, because when you're new at these companies, sometimes you have to. So I reached out to my other fleet manager and I told him what was going on, and he goes, just set your ETA. And I said, well, what about all this stuff that this other lady told me? And he goes, well, she doesn't have any trucking experience. She's never been on a truck. You have. And I said, I had that conversation with her and she argued with me. I'm like, so why are you telling me something different than what she's telling me? And why is she arguing with me when I have 6.5 years of driving experience? You know, it's like, sometimes I think you got to kind of just ask yourself and think about who you're talking to. You know, this lady's going to treat me like a greenhorn just because I'm new to Melton. I've been driving truck for 6.5 years. I know exactly how long it's going to take me to get somewhere. And I don't care what you say. I don't care what algorithm you use. I don't care how you come up with this formula of you always just dispatch everything at 50 miles an hour. And that you had a whole bunch of think tank brainiacs that did a whole bunch of mathematical calculations. And that's what they said. They said that they had a team of college people come in and do a study on thousands and thousands of different loads that they've ran, and they came up with an average number across all loads at 50 miles an hour, average dispatch speed on all loads. So when you send in your PTA, that is the way you are to trip plan yourself at 50 miles an hour. And I said, that doesn't work. I will adjust my PTA according to where I'm going. If you don't like that, I don't know what to tell you. I don't care. So you can take your 50 mile an hour dispatch speed and shove it where the sun don't shine, because it doesn't make sense and it's not practical. She goes, well, you can't base your assumptions off of traffic delays and off of this. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna get in a truck and roll through Atlanta and think that you're going to get through there at 50 miles an hour. Good luck, honey. It ain't happening. Because I know traffic patterns and I know things that you don't know, because I've been out here for 6.5 years. My experience tells me that I need to adjust. So those were some of the problems there. And then I had a fleet manager, had several fleet managers that, you know, they say, oh yeah, I believe in effective communication. Well, if your idea of effective communication is me sending in my Qualcomm messages and me not being able to talk to you on the phone, and me not being able to ask you specific questions, and you not getting the information that I need and getting back to me in a timely manner, that does not work, and that is not effective communication. Because everything is centered around planning out here. And if I need to know some information about my delivery, and you tell me, oh, you need to be there at 0159 in the, or not 0159, at 1359, which basically means at around 1 or 2 o'clock, that's tentative, saying we want you there around this time. I need to know what the receiving hours are. So I need to know from, you know, what are your receiving hours? 8 to 5? Because if I know it's 8 to 5, and I know that 2 days in advance, and it's a 1,300 or 1,200 mile load, then I know within that trip whether or not I can take a little bit longer trip here. I know whether or not I can fit in a shower. I know whether or not I need to get up earlier and push this back to back and take my 10, 11, 10 back to back to back in order to push it really hard to get it there on time. Or, hey, if I have a little bit of extra time, I need to know that, period. And if it's not okay that I don't have that information, or if you think it's okay that I don't have that information, it's not. It's just not. Because then I can't plan my day out. And if everything that I do is based on trip planning, and you're telling me to trip plan, and yet you're telling me to run as hard as I can and then take my breaks, you're telling me how to run my truck. And that's not planning. That's something else. Micromanagement, I think, or something like that. Anyway, effective communication, it's a two-way street, and we just need to be able to communicate whether they're communicating back with us or not. But we also need to be firm and steadfast and stand for what's right. And I don't have a whole lot of problems out here, but when I do, I communicate them very quickly. And I make sure that people know right away. And from what I'm seeing from this company here, these load planners don't give a shit about us drivers at all. They really don't. And we're just a problem and a burden to them. Because they don't realize that, you know, you can't just put a load on our truck and just say go. There's delays. And there's scheduling. And there's hours of service. And just because you have it scheduled to deliver at 8 a.m. and it's a 500-mile load and you just gave it to me yesterday afternoon, guess what, Jack? If I'm at the end of my day, I pick up that load, first thing I got to do is take a 10 off. So I'm not going to be able to get it there at 8 a.m. Am I? Nope. But these people don't know how to plan that out. The fleet managers are the ones that are able to plan that out. And so they have to go between you, the driver, and the load planner. Very ineffective system. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And I think what they need to do is they need to spend the extra money and bring in some more people, so that the caseload and the workload is a lot lighter. And you need to bring in people that are a little bit more knowledgeable about the industry and hours of service. Because talking to these people, my fleet manager is very intelligent. He used to drive truck, but I've talked to people that were fleet managers that have never been on a truck. Why is that okay? How is that even remotely okay? You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're doing. You don't have a clue. You don't know anything about trucking. What are you doing trying to be a fleet manager? Or not a fleet, well, yeah, or either a fleet manager or a load planner. You don't know anything about logistics because you don't know anything about the practical side. You know, and I'm not speaking bad about brokers, agents, and, you know, load planners in general, but I think because load planning, I don't know, I think there's a difference between brokers and load planners for these companies, because they have a basic formula that they follow, and they go, okay, well, it looks like he has hours, but they don't dig in a little bit more to find out whether we actually do. They don't look at our previous days of running, and they don't look at our current log entries to find out if we actually do have the appropriate amount of hours to run these loads, and that ultimately creates a whole lot of problems out here. So, you know, when we get into some of these problems like that, you just got to effectively communicate, and don't be afraid to communicate with your fleet manager. And then also on top of that, go ahead and call your fleet manager supervisor or your terminal manager, operations manager, or whoever's higher up, and just kind of talk things out with them. I've had to do that a lot to find out if I'm being reasonable, to find out if I actually do have a valid complaint. And a lot of times they tell me, yes, you do have a valid complaint, but they don't do anything about it, and nothing changes. And you know, if we don't get some of these problems ironed out, we're never gonna be able to fix any of these turnover problems that we have, because if you don't resolve the problems are gonna create more problems down the road. If you're a lease operator, you know, you have, depending on your lease contract with your companies, at some companies you dispatch your own loads and you deal with agents. And at other companies, you have dispatchers that are responsible for dispatching your truck. So, and as a owner-operator, you still have people that you need to communicate with, you know, like agents and brokers, the people that write the check. And those are the people that you need to be in communication with. And if you're not communicating with them, you're not doing your job. Truck driving is planning and communication. And planning and communication have to go hand in hand, because you can't plan if you don't communicate, because then there's information that you don't know. But remember, it's not a one-way street. You need information from the brokers and the agents and the shippers and the receivers, so that you know what you're getting into scheduling wise when you get there. And they don't want to be bothered with the particulars, unfortunately. And so what it can do is it can sour our attitude. And I'm at a situation right now where I'm burned out. I'm starting to lose my give a damn. And it's hard for me because I love trucking. I really do. I wouldn't be out here if I didn't love trucking. It's more than just a job for me. It's a lifestyle, and I love it. And I love feeling like I am part of a team. And because we are all in this industry, we are all doing the same thing. And so the brotherhood actually exists, unless you think you're an island unto yourself. And if you have that attitude, I think things are going to be a little rougher for you. Some people will say, well, I don't get involved in the politics. Well, it's not politics. It's communication and relationships, okay? And this is a relationship business, and anybody that tells you that it's not doesn't know what they're talking about. And if you start messing stuff up, watch how fast you start sitting, and how fast it becomes very difficult for you to do your job. Relationships are super important. And if you're not working out well with a certain fleet manager, then change fleet managers. See if you can find a different personality that you get along with a little bit better, but also look at your own personality. And hold yourself accountable too. There's been a couple times where I've had to call my fleet manager back and apologize for being an ass. You know, I'm not perfect. I don't claim to be perfect. And there are times when I can't see past my own butt. You know, and I will quickly admit that when I become upset, I get excited, and I really do my best. And I'll tell you what, if I start cussing, I'm pissed. So those are a lot of the times when I try to get things worked out, and I try to get them worked out rather quickly, because if I'm at that point, let me tell you, if Sean's pissed, if I'm pissed off, this isn't something that just was like one recent event. This is like 3 weeks of me telling you this is a problem. We need to change this. And trust me, I've been telling my fleet manager for the last 3 weeks that we need to get this smoothed out, or I'm going to start getting pissed off. And now I'm at that point. I'm pissed off. And ultimately, I know that I have options, and I'm, setting things up to go over to work for a BCO at Landstar so that I can learn the business side of things, so that I can get into my own truck, so that I can dispatch my own loads, so that I'm not dependent upon all of these people that don't know anything. It's a lot simpler when you take a lot of the people out of the loop. And when it's between you and the broker, and you have the ability to call the shippers and receivers on your own and get the information that you need, instead of waiting for hours and hours and hours for some company dude to get back to you that might not ever get back to you, that's a better life, I think. But unfortunately, it's not just about, thinking the grass is greener on the other side, because a lot of times all you're doing is you're trading a certain set of problems for another set of problems. So I know that as well. Just know, brothers and sisters out here in the trucking industry, that this is your main responsibilities are communication, planning, and relationships. And holding yourself accountable and doing the best that you can and communicating the best that you can, and knowing that all you can do is all you can do, and that people are going to mess things up. And when they mess things up, call them out. Hold them accountable. Hold yourself accountable. And if it continues to be something that's just not working out, go somewhere else. But if you're a new driver and you're brand new to a company and you're at a mega fleet, just know this is the way it's going to be. You're not going to have very good communication, and things are not going to go well for you. And you need to be able to suck it up, and you need to be able to keep your head up, do the best that you can to the best of your abilities, and don't be afraid to go find a different job. Not all companies are exactly the same. And I gotta say, PTL, Paschal Truck Lines, they're a decent company to get started with. They really are. This company, I would, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give them a sliding scale, because it all depends on their HR problems, right? So it all depends on how many times you get switched fleet managers. It all depends on how many times you get switched to a different truck. So there's problems within the industry. So on the sliding scale, I would say they range from 9 all the way down to 6. You know, I won't throw them at the bottom of the barrel. There are companies out there that I've worked with that I won't even give them a 5 or a 3. They're horrible. But a lot of it is finding the right people to work with that communicate well with you. And a lot of it really is a human element problem, a relationship problem. Sometimes the problem is the driver, and sometimes the problem really is the fleet manager. I've seen some fleet managers that were just horrible at communication. I can't do my job if I don't have the right information and effective communication out here. So those are my thoughts. So if you like this information, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the flip side, and we'll come out with some more videos. Thanks.